Okay, so welcome everyone to a talk series by the Borneo Wildlife Ambassador Program. Some of you know me. My name is Mala. I'm a marine biologist by trade, and I'm part of the One Stop Borneo Wildlife team. So what am I going to talk about today? Guess what? Nudibranchs. Does anybody here know what a nudibranch is? Nope. Okay, we're going to find out. Nudibranchs are actually marine snails. They have a very soft body and are part of the gastropod mollusk group. Okay? Now, they have global distribution. What does that mean? You can find them in the equatorial waters, you can find them in the tropic waters, and you can find them also in the polar Arctic waters. They have a lack of shell. So even though they are marine snails, these snails have evolved over time to actually disperse of their shell. In fact, some of them even carry their shells within their tissue. Very interesting. They come in a variety of color, forms, and shapes, which make them very attractive to the divers. They come also as tiny as less than 1 millimeter in size to as big as 30 centimeters in size. So a great diversity in nudibranchs. As you can see here, look at all these wonderful colors and wonderful shapes. This is only a drop in the ocean. There are 3,200 species of nudibranchs worldwide. And amazingly, 5 to 6 new species are found every year. So there's more to discover about nudibranch. So the small ones are between 1 to 2 centimeters, as you can see here, magnifying glass, tiny nudibranch, to the large one here, which is called a Spanish dancer. Why Spanish dancer? In the free column of water, it undulates its mantle like a Spanish dancer, thus earning the nickname Spanish dancer. Next slide, please. Since now you've known a little bit about nudibranchs, let's delve deeper into the biology and morphology of these amazing animals. Next slide, please. Morphology. Basically, you can describe nudibranchs into two main groups. We've got the dorids and the aeolids. The dorids and the aeolids share one characteristic. It's rhinophores. Yeah? Rhinophores are very sensitive organs that sense chemical changes, food, and other nudibranchs in the water. The serrata, or the gills, are used to breathe. As you can see here, the gills are naked, not like in snails where it's enclosed in a shell. Nudibranch literally means naked gill, and thus that's how the nudibranch got its name. Next slide, please. Now let's delve into the reproduction of nudibranchs. This is where it gets rather interesting. Why? An individual nudibranch can have a male and female sex organ. Basically, they're hermaphrodites. Why do you think that's so? Imagine the nudibranch looking for a partner in the big wide ocean. It's not going to be easy to find a male and a male, or a female and a female. So being male and female at the same time increases its chances of mating and thus reproducing and ensuring the survival rate of that species. How does it mate? It has two organs on the side, and they will join in, as later on I will show you in a picture. Once the mating is done, a ribbon of eggs is then laid. This ribbon of eggs consists of tiny little egg structures, which will then hatch into the veliger, a free-form swimming form of the nudibranch. The veliger feeds on zooplanktons and gently grows till it's big enough to settle on the benthic surface. Once it settles on the benthic surface, it will metamorphose into a young nudibranch. So it does have an amazing life cycle. How long from a veliger to an adult nudibranch? Well, that is species dependent. It can be as young as fast as 30 to 50 days or as long as 72 to 84 days depending on the species. Next slide, please. So here you see mating nudibranchs. The organs on the side are joined together. Can you imagine a tiny nudibranch like this laying the whole mass of these ribbon eggs? And here we have a huge ribbon egg. It's been noted that Ribbon eggs can actually tell you what kind of species of nudibranch laid that egg, according to color or structure or size. So in this way, some scientists even can tell you what kind of nudibranch laid that egg. For example, I can tell you what this one is, Spanish dancer. Okay? What do they eat? Okay, and how do they feed? Nudibranches feed with a fleshy area in front of their mouth. Within the mouth is a lot of tiny chitinous teeth. They are little teeth that are made of polysaccharides, similar to the shell of the snail. With this, it rasps on sponges, tunicates, bryozoans, and then ingests its food into its stomach. How do they find their food? Remember we talked about rhinophores? Rhinophores sense other food particles in the water like bryozoans and tunicates and tell the nudibranch something is nearby for it to eat. Nudibranches have also managed to learn a very interesting thing. It does eat poisonous, toxic things underwater like anemones and tunicates, but it doesn't get killed by this. In fact, it can ingest these toxins and sequester them into their cells and then use them as a defense mechanism. Quite interesting, isn't it? Amazing nudibranches. Next one, please. So you're probably thinking, what are tunicates? What are bryozoans? What's she talking about? Well, these are tunicates, these are bryozoans, these are hydroids, and these are sponges. These are the kind of food that are beloved by tunicates and eaten by our beloved nudibranches. Let's go to see now how nudibranches protect themselves underwater. The first one is using their bright color to advertise that they're distasteful or dangerous or full of toxin. Similar to land animals, when you see a snake that's brightly colored or a frog, you go, oh my God, that's dangerous, right? Same concept underwater. It's called aposematism. The nudibranches use this very well underwater to warn off predators, don't eat me. Second, chemical defenses. We talked about how toxins are ingested into the nudibranch and into the flesh of the nudibranch. When prey come to eat it, it gets either a distasteful taste or gets killed. So that's not going to happen again, is it? So there you go. Camouflage. Despite nudibranches being very colorful, as I showed you earlier on, some of them are very bland and blend very well into their background and thus cannot be found by its predator. A very good technique to hide away from your prey. Mucus production. There are some species of nudibranches that produce copious amounts of mucus, a sticky slime. Yeah, you think of when you have a flu, similar to that, not very nice. What happens then is the nudibranch is then too slimy for the predator to grab it. So what happens, it just slides off, or the prey gets entangled in this mass of mucus and is unable to attack the nudibranch. Very interesting technique. Next slide, please. Defense appendages. As we saw earlier, these are serrata, yeah, on aeolith nudibranches. Serrata have two functions in this nudibranch. One is to absorb oxygen for breathing, and the second is to act as a defense mechanism because the tips are full of toxin. So imagine when you brush against something itchy on land, similar feeling to this underwater. If a prey goes too close to these nudibranches, it feels a sting. It's given a warning, don't come and touch me, and thus the nudibranch saves itself. Last but not least, autotomy. This is something you all know. When you see chichak in your room, in your house, and then suddenly the tail is on the floor shaking away, similar to this nudibranch. What happens here in some species, the prey attacks, the part of the nudibranch falls off, and the nudibranch can escape. It can even regenerate itself over time and become whole again. So these are the amazing defense mechanisms used by nudibranches. Next slide, please. What are the importance of nudibranches in our environment? As we know, they are very sensitive to changes in its environment. So it can be used as bioindicators to check water quality and to check the healthiness of a reef. A good reef has a good amount of diverse nudibranches because it means there's a good amount of diverse food available to these nudibranches. So that's a good indicator of the healthiness of our reef. Secondly, scientific research. The toxins that we talked about earlier, They are found to be having some pharmaceutical importance, to be made into medicines for future uses, or also in manufacturing production of detergents and so forth. So there's a lot of research in labs globally concerning this kind of toxins that are sequestered by the nudibranch to see how they can be used in future products. Lastly, ecotourism. It's like me. I'm a diver. I love nudibranches. A lot of divers love nudibranches. If you say there's dive site in, for example, Tunku Abdul Rahman Park has a nudibranch area that's full of them. Divers love it. They'll be going, ooh, we want to dive there because we want to see the nudibranches. So it has a good potential value for ecotourism. Next slide, please. Lastly, I'm going to talk about symbiotic relationships. There are many kinds of relationships that nudibranches have. One of them is with zooxanthellae. Zooxanthellae are little plankton organic matters that are alive in the tissue of the nudibranch. What does it do? Zooxanthellae can actually do photosynthesis using sun and create nutrients which then are absorbed by the nudibranch. These kind of nudibranches stay very shallow so that they can open and spread their appendages so that there's a big surface area that allows then this zooxanthellae to use maximum sunlight to create those nutrients needed by both. Chemical defense, we talked about this. Nudibranch can eat toxins without having any fatal effects on themselves, and in turn use it as a defense mechanism. A very good way and a good relationship between toxins and how nudibranches save themselves underwater. Next slide, please. Last but not least is this special relationship between the emperor shrimp and certain nudibranches. This shrimp loves to travel with the nudibranch. I will show you a video soon. They hang on to the nudibranch, and as the nudibranch goes on the bottom of the ocean, it creates a stir. And when it stirs up the bottom, food will come out. As you see the little egrets, the white birds in the golf clubs, or when you cut grass, all the birds will come. Same. So they will feed with the nudibranch as it moves. Secondly, what does the nudibranch get out of it? Cleaning service. So all the ectoparasites are removed from the nudibranch. All wounds are cleaned by this shrimp, and the shrimp also gets then extra food sources. So this is a beautiful relationship between a shrimp and a nudibranch. Here, very interestingly, we managed to photograph a nudibranch hanging out with a lionfish. It's not every day that you see this. What happened probably is the lionfish was very close to the reef. The nudibranch was crawling along and just happened to crawl over the lionfish, and off he goes sailing with the lionfish. Very interesting. Now we're going to watch some videos about nudibranches just to give you an idea of how they look like underwater and how they feed and how they breed. So this is one of the nudibranches feeding with its fleshy part. As you can see, it's using its radula to rasp on the algae and feed. Very clearly is its naked gill and its rhinophores, which it uses all the time to sense its food. You can see from this why people love nudibranches. Yes, they do, but very tiny. Yeah. This is an interesting relationship between Ribeskia nudibranches. They tend to tag along in twos. Every single species in the Ribeskia family does this. We don't know why, but we think it's to help with reproduction. They don't want to lose each other in order to be able to find each other easily. Here you see mating nudibranches. So these nudibranches generally stay very still when they mate, and they send their sperm sacs through these organs that you can clearly see between the two nudibranches here. So you think snails are slow? No, this one is not a slow snail. Very fast, it moves along the bottom as it feeds. And what is this dark part? Remember I told you some of them have their shells within their body still. This is one of them that's still carrying its shell. It hasn't totally lost it in the evolutionary process. Remember I mentioned how do nudibranches find themselves? Sometimes they send out chemical sensors like pheromones. What happens then is you find a lot of them in a place. They can be up to 20 to 30 individuals all trying to mate together, and that's how they find each other. It works very well, as you can see from this. Last but not least, here is our very interesting interaction between the emperor shrimp and the Ceratosoma nudibranch. As you can see, as it moves, the shrimp is actively feeding on the bottom, looking for whatever little bit of food it can find. At the same time, because of this locomotive action, it can move fast along the bottom and not have to stay in one place and hide and worry about predators. It's got a best friend here to move together as it goes along. So this is a very interesting relationship. It also happens with some sea cucumbers, Spanish dancer as well. So whenever you see these kind of nudibranches, we look for the shrimp. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. Next slide, please. So now that you know the amazing facts of nudibranch, do you find marine snails boring? I hope not, because to me, I love them, yeah? And if we love them, we need to conserve where they come from. How do we do this, yeah? We need to conserve the ocean, so please try not to use single-use plastic. Use a shopping bag when you go shopping. If you think you're going to forget it, leave it in the car, leave it in your rucksack so that you always have it with you. And also take a water bottle with you. Forget about plastic water bottles. Try to carry a real water bottle that you can fill somewhere. Okay, it hasn't come to that point yet in KK, but hopefully one day we can fill our water bottles somewhere. Try to join some activities like reforestation of mangroves or cleaning beach cleanup. Every single bit of plastic that stays away from the ocean saves our animals. So we need to be proactive in this and try to save them. Say no to eating turtle eggs, no. And say no to shark fin. These animals need your help, yeah? There's only a few of them left in the world. We need to give them a good chance to survive. Say no to turtle eggs, no shark fins. Try to join in some activities that bring you closer to the marine environment, and why not try to make a marine club in your school so that you can share this knowledge and get people to talk to you so that you can advance your knowledge in the marine area. It's a very big and lovely ocean out there, and there's lots to learn about it. So that's the end of my talk. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, ask them now. The floor is open.
What's the lifespan of?
Okay, very good question. In some species, only 2 weeks, like butterflies. In some species, 1 year. Yeah. So it can be a big variation between the life and it's very related to species. So like you know, in the butterfly world, some butterflies die after 1 week, some butterflies die after 4, some can live up to 1 year. So you know, it's a very big question, but not much research has been done on that exactly. Yeah.
Do all nudibranches have all those defense mechanisms?
No, they can have up to 2 of them, which is the aposematism and the toxin. But not all nudibranches secrete toxin in their body either. So that's why each of them are quite specific to each species, as again. But at least 2 of these mechanisms a nudibranch will have.
So are nudibranches ever found in the deep sea? Or?
Yes, they're also found in the very deep sea. For example, robotics have found them in about maybe up to 5,000 meters underwater, where you have the vents with the methane gases. They have found nudibranches there as well.
Yes.
So it's very big, wide range of them. Yeah. Because of why? They're soft-bodied, so they can take a lot of pressure underwater.
What are the most common species of nudibranch? Yeah, some of them.
Oh, the chromodoris ones, these guys. Oh, actually all of these can be found here.
All of them.
All of them.
And then across the different parts of the world, you find different types.
They are mostly the dorid and the aeolid nudibranches, 2 groups, right? You'll find every member of these 2 groups everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world, yeah. And this is the one that I said like can blend very well in its background because it's just white color. So if it just stays on a whitish background and quiet, nobody finds it. It doesn't even look like a nudibranch. It looks like a plant or something like that. Yeah. Any more questions?
Are they harmful?
Harmful? No. They don't harm you at all. Yeah. Don't touch anything underwater. They can sting, but they're not gonna like cause you any death symptoms or anything like that. No. Anything else? Okay, so I guess that's it. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.